562-925-7700. Again, 562-925-7700. Walk-ins are always welcome as Tams is located on the corner of Bellflower and Rosecrans. Tams Pizzeria, they have it all.
Welcome back to the StubHub Center in Carson, California. We're just about set to get the second half underway between St. John Bosco and De La Salle. 17-7, the Braves lead the Spartans at the half. And, well, St. John Bosco the last handful of weeks have been deferring at the beginning of the game, so they will receive here in the second half once again. I believe this is the 7th consecutive week St. John Bosco won the toss and elected to defer, and here they are up at the half with a chance to extend that lead as they're going to get the football here first.
Since you know so much about the Braves, Chris, what does St. John Bosco have to do to run away here?
St. John Bosco just needs to keep it going through the air. De La Salle has not seen an offense with the passing attack that Josh Rosen and the Braves bring to the table. You heard it from Trent. He believes that Josh Rosen has a chance to win a Heisman Trophy. I don't know about that, but he sure is one heck of a quarterback. The second half is underway. Jaleel Wadood will receive the kickoff at the 3, get himself to the 17-yard line before he's brought down by a plethora of Spartans. And with 11:54 left to go here in the third quarter, Bosco up 17-7. Let's see if they can keep it rolling on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, we'll see if Bosco's big offensive line can wear down the defensive line of the Spartans and see if they can open up the big holes we saw last week that led for Sean McGrew to run for 300-plus yards.
It's a trips right formation for the Braves here on first down, and it'll be the run with Sean McGrew, and McGrew has that big hole closed quickly as he only gets himself to the 22-yard line for a steady gain of 5 on first down. He's gotten himself a couple of big runs tonight, but nothing like last week against Corona Centennial when he went bananas against the Huskies defense.
He was certainly eating up that other defensive unit. As we'll just have a short gain on the ground. Khalil McKenzie, I want to give some praise to a man who has had a very entertaining season so far. Had some rough beginnings, but has turned it around. And ironically enough, a junior defensive lineman who missed 2 games because of an incident involving a vehicle accident leads his team in sacks and tackles on the defensive front.
And he's only a junior. I'm sure Coach Justin Allenbaugh is excited to have this guy back next year. On a 3rd and short, Rosen will keep, and Rosen has a St. John Bosco first down all the way to the Braves' 39-yard line, a gain of 12 on the ground. That time from the junior QB, Josh Rosen, not only doing it with his arm, but once again we see his dual-threat capabilities here tonight, picking up the first down with his legs that time.
Yeah, that's an option, and that was a good read by Rosen right there to take the ball.
1st and 10 for the Braves. Rosen going to the air, goes over the middle, and the pass is caught. It's Jared Harrell, the sophomore receiver, catching it. And that'll put the football all the way down to the De La Salle 38-yard line. How about Jared Harrell coming up with a big reception for the Braves and a big first down at that as well?
We've talked all year how Negro sees the potential for Harrell here, and we have too. He's only a sophomore, and he's doing some great things, and when Shea and Jaleel leave, he'll have to step up.
5 receiver set. It's Rosen stepping up here and running, and Rosen dives forward to the 31, but hold your horses. There's a flag back in the backfield, and this one looks like it's coming back. St. John Bosco will be called for a holding penalty for the 3rd time here tonight. Very uncharacteristic of that talented offensive line.
Yeah, they're certainly making mistakes. I didn't have an opportunity during the pregame to mention exactly how big of a mismatch this is in favor of the Braves. Offensive line has been overpowering that defensive front. 52.5 sacks going into this contest for De La Salle. They have posted 0 so far tonight. The running game that has been stopped all season long by De La Salle on that defensive front, Sean McGrew has ripped them for over 100 yards. A huge mismatch, and the Braves getting all that they want outside of the penalty department.
After the penalty, it'll be a 1st and 20 for St. John Bosco. Rosen back to pass, has a man open. That's Jaleel Wadood, and Wadood able to get himself 3 yards short of the original line of scrimmage. down to the 32-yard line of the Spartans. Went Wadoud that time. And talk about a receiver getting wide open tonight. Jaleel Wadoud has done exactly that. Not only the 2 touchdown catches, but a couple of other catches. Nobody's been even in his vicinity when he catches the football.
Because the Braves have provided a majority of the night with some fantastic pass protection.
Second and short, it's a screen pass to Fields. Fields gets inside the 20, inside the 15, and he's taken down at the 12, but hold your horses once again. A flag is down, and once again a holding call against St. John Bosco. Very, very uncharacteristic of this St. John Bosco offense to get called for so many penalties, but holding penalties, that comes as a complete surprise to me.
They're killing themselves with penalties. They get out of their own hole on a 1st and 20 because of a holding penalty the last time, and they do the same mistake again. Jaleel Wadoud, a fantastic receiving threat so far for first half going into the third. 5 catches for him. Makes a bonehead decision, holding a defensive back who was not going to make the play.
2nd and 16 here after the holding penalty. It backs up St. John Bosco to their own 48 as the pass falls incomplete, intended for Sean McGrew. You know, the laundry just keeps coming on the field here as we have another penalty down in the backfield. Another holding penalty against St. John Bosco. The 3rd on this drive, and the 3rd in the last 4 plays run from the line of scrimmage. You see Jason Negro's face on that other sideline for St. John Bosco. He's not too happy, and he's not too sure about these calls from this officiating crew. St. John Bosco rarely gets called for holding penalties. 3 on this drive.
Yeah, let alone 3 in a row. Damian Mama, the guilty party. I don't know if that was certainly a holding call, but one thing I am sure of, I don't like this defensive play call here for De La Salle. They continue to only provide 4 men rushing the quarterback. Rosen has been able to sip a cup of tea and then some, having all day in the pocket. One more time, a penalty. And for the 5th time on this drive, a tag against Bosco. Looks to be a false start on the offense.
It will be a false start against St. John Bosco.
Mama pleading his case.
As Damian Mama trying to plead his case that it was not a false start. We'll get the official ruling on the field, and it'll instead... Yeah, it will be a false start against St. John Bosco. So how about this? St. John Bosco was driving on this possession. They were deep in De La Salle territory. All of a sudden, it's a 2nd and 32 plaguing the Braves at their own 40-yard line.
Justin Allenbaugh's defense, if they can't get to the quarterback, they'll certainly weaken this march down the field with holding penalties. They've forced Bosco to do what they certainly have not been accustomed to all year long, facing a 2nd and long.
2nd and a mile here for the Braves. It's a delayed handoff to McGrew, and McGrew is wrapped up and thrown down by the big defensive lineman, Khalil McKenzie. Are we watching a football game or are we watching UFC? Boy, Khalil McKenzie, the 6'3", 300-pound defensive lineman, just threw down the little sophomore Sean McGrew like he was in a welterweight fight. My goodness, that was an explosive play from the defensive lineman Khalil McKenzie here on a 3rd and long. Rosen over the middle, and the pass is complete. Shea Fields able to get to the De La Salle 35. Will be short of the first down marker by a good 7 yards. But I can't get over that last play. Khalil McKenzie picked up Sean McGrew and threw him to the turf.
Khalil McKenzie regarded as the strongest man on this De La Salle football team. He can bench over 400 pounds, and he just bench pressed Sean McGrew on that play.
St. John Bosco will go for it here on a 4th and 7. They have the ball at the De La Salle 35. Boy, they've eaten up a lot of clock here to start the 3rd quarter. They lead 17-7. Does St. John Bosco. 8:05 left to go here in the 3rd quarter. And a flag flies in for a delay of game penalty. I think Jason Negro was just seeing if he could get the hard count to try to draw the Spartans off sides. And instead, after the delay of game penalty, it'll push it back to a 4th and long, and Richard Cole, the Braves punter, will be summoned for just the second time tonight.
Yeah, we haven't seen Richard Cole too much, but here he comes out again trying to pin De La Salle deep in their own territory.
And once again, a flag flies as the ball was snapped to Richard Cole. Boy, 6 penalties on this drive for St. John Bosco. It'll be interesting to see what the call is here as we await the wording from the official down on the field. And once again, it's a penalty against St. John Bosco, this time an illegal substitution. That's 7 penalties on one drive. St. John Bosco, fortunate to be up as it is, but if they keep playing like this in the second half, those Spartans are going to come back in a hurry.
Yeah, the referees are going to have to ice their shoulders after this one, throwing penalties galore in this matchup. Inside the 10 is Custer.
Cole gets it off. It's a spiraling kick. Custard will elect to let it bounce, and it takes a beautiful St. John Bosco hop, and it's going to go all the way down to the 1-yard line. So Richard Cole, a highly regarded senior punter who has struggled somewhat throughout the playoffs punting the football, puts down a beauty right there. And with 7:51 left to go, Chris Williams and this De La Salle offense will be forced to start from their own 1-yard line.
Well, I'm not a man that plays the blame game, but I do want to put the blame, on that De La Salle defense. Forcing Bosco into a 3rd and a mile. They give up a 20-yard completion to Jaleel Wadood, and instead of the Braves punting from their own 40-yard line, instead from the De La Salle 40, and that just changes everything. Now, Richard Cole can punt however he wants. He puts a high, towering kick that bounces inside the 5, and Custer, you're taught from the special teams coaches galore, you're taught not to field it inside the 10. Bosco doing a fantastic job forcing them inside the 5 at the 1 for a team that is so limited as De La Salle. I mentioned coming into this contest, the Spartans had 90 total yards passing the football the entire month. Coming into this game with 22 in the first half, Chris Williams mentioned the entire week. He has to come up big and play his best game of the season. He has bloodlines from a number of players that went on to the NCAA level. He's going to have to show his experience here on this drive, starting from their 1.
De La Salle starts from the 1, and it's the quick handoff to John Velasco up the middle. And boy, does Velasco get them a much-needed 6 yards on the first carry. He's just been eaten tonight, running behind that big offensive line of the Spartans.
Chewing up clock, and for De La Salle, who has so much time of possession, John Velasco continues to be the player to watch here on offense.
2nd and 4 after the run from Velasco, and Velasco runs again and appeared to drop the football. St. John Bosco says that they have it. Boy, would this be big as St. John Bosco would take over inside the De La Salle 10, but luckily for De La Salle, the Spartans recover. Boy, that would have been huge.
Yeah, John Velasco hobbling back to the line of scrimmage. They're going to bring up Hernandez one more time to hopefully run the football soon. Velasco hobbled back into the huddle. John Velasco here on a 3rd down looks to be the man to watch here behind center.
3rd and 3 for the Spartans. It'll be Williams with the keeper. Williams is stopped right at the first down marker. I believe he's just a bit short. And sure enough, they will mark him just short, and just to make sure they're going to bring out the chains here. We saw them do that in the first quarter, and De La Salle was able to get the first down, but this one would be a little bit bigger because if it's not a first down, you're probably not going to go for it on 4th down right in the shadows of your own goalpost. As we await to see what the call is down on the football field. 17-7, the Braves lead, 6:36 left to go in the 3rd quarter, and as we're looking on our little TV monitor we have up here in the booth tonight at the wonderful StubHub Center in Carson, California, just about set to measure the football.